Okay.
All right, cool. Welcome to VITRIOL podcast number 2. My wonderful, amazing, awesome guest is Eunice. What's your last name and introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited for our conversation. So my name is Eunice Uribes. That's my last name. I'm a LCSW in California, and I own a small group practice here.
Fantastic. And we met a couple months ago in Costa Rica at the Thriving Therapist Conference.
Yep. Great place to meet.
That was
Definitely.
amazing. Absolutely gorgeous. There were like lizards everywhere, and it was beautiful, and it was wonderful.
Yes.
So, this podcast live stream, whatever this is completely free form, unedited, trying to be raw as hell. So, we're just going to start a conversation. A little bit before this, we were talking about business, and you own a group practice.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I own a group practice. It's called Better Together Mental Health Services. I started off as a solo practice. I never really thought I would be here at this point in my career. That wasn't my intention when I went to grad school and all of that. But so I started off as solo, and I realized, you know what, there's a lot of more clients than I can actually handle. So, it'd be good to hire somebody and to have some help. And it kind of really worked out because there's another group practice owner who needed to make some changes in her practice. And so she had a therapist who needed a place to go. And I kind of just jumped in. I didn't know what I was doing, but hired her, figured it out, and grew from there. So.
Fantastic. So I'm a solo practitioner right now. I've been that way since 2019, technically since 2016, but fully on my own since 2019. And I love the idea of a group practice. My problem is I don't play nice in the sandbox. No, I'm going to say that differently. I really like the idea of a group practice. I'm just lazy. So what advice do you have to a solo practitioner who's looking to expand?
Well, as far as I think first of all, not thinking that you have to have it all together before you start your practice. I think there's probably a lot of people might have this misperception that group owners are super organized and on it, and and that's not me. That is definitely not me. I am a procrastinator. I am not as organized. It's funny, like my calendar, I'll try to be organized. I try my best. I put things in there, and then I look back, I'm like, oh, I didn't do anything that I planned, right? Or like I didn't, I have a long to-do list that's going to carry on to next week. So I think that's the first advice, is not expecting that you have to have it all together in order to do it. I think if you have the desire, that's the first thing, as far as like, it does take a lot of work though, so we can't really be too lazy about it. It does take a lot of work. So getting assistance or support from other group leaders or owners, like Facebook groups have been great for me. I can go in and see what other people are doing and hear other people's experiences. So that has been really helpful. Listening to podcasts, also very helpful. So yeah, just start small and take little steps from there, I'd say.
Perfect. So being imperfect and being okay with that, Steve says in his terrible lighting with his secondhand microphone and whatever else is going on in this video. Being imperfect, which is hard.
I listened to a podcast in the process of growing, and the thing that stood out to me, I'm completely forgetting who it was, so sorry that I can't give them like a shout out, but they talked about temporary incompetence, right? And that really stuck out to me. And I was like, oh, yes, that's okay. I am incompetent in this area because I don't know what I'm doing. But it's temporary, and I'm going to figure it out. So the one employee that I have that I hired first, her 1-year work anniversary, we just celebrated that this week. So I've had her for a year, and then the other 2 I hired within the last 6 months, I'd say.
Nice. Awesome. And the temporary incompetence. I recently tried to do some carpentry, and I am the worst carpenter on planet Earth.
Oh.
I was terrible. It was just a waste of time, energy, money, attention,
Oh,
all
man.
this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, this particular skill, I'm forever incompetent. I'm getting rid of all my tools and etc. But
Yeah.
for something I care about, such as counseling, it's like, okay, I know this logically. I'm supposed to be the baby counselor first. I'm supposed to be incompetent and then move on to mastery.
Yeah.
But I'm impatient and I just want mastery today.
Well, what made you choose to try out carpentry?
Oh, I'm living a vehicle. I'm currently in a hotel right now for Wi-Fi and scheduling purposes, but I'm a traveling therapist.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was actually one of the things I talked about in Costa Rica, being a traveling therapist.
Yeah.
And I wish I had more pictures because everyone else had some super sweet pictures. But I have a new vehicle. It's a Ford Transit. It's actually big now, and I've been trying to actually make it pretty and organized and an office and all this other stuff. And it's slow going, but yeah, I got a couple things ordered on Amazon that'll hopefully come in, and just some furniture that I'm putting up, and I'm keeping it as simple as possible.
Yeah, that sounds good. Or just have somebody, hire somebody out walking around like, hey, are you good at putting furniture together? Want to help me out? Or
I am totally down to hire a contractor. That is fine right now. I never want to pick up a hammer again. Like ever. Unless I'm going to war. Unless it's like a war hammer and I have to smash someone in the face. But otherwise, no. Unless I'm going, I guess, theoretically going to war in the, I don't know, 1300s.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's not now.
No, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
They're going to say, get out of here. We don't need you. Thank you.
No.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Facebook, which is great because I'm in every therapist group on planet Earth. It is overwhelming and it annoys me.
Yes.
But there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's just a lot of separating the wheat from the chaff. Was there anything in like looking through the social media aspect that like really what advice do you have for someone in that realm?
Being on social media and joining groups on there?
Well, yeah, specifically where to find the social support for starting a group practice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I really started to learn about a lot of Facebook groups via podcasts. So I think that was the first thing that I kind of did. Right now, it's funny because I deactivated my Facebook account because I was overwhelmed.
Good for you.
It was a lot, but then I'm finding myself like, oh, I want to go ask this question. Like, oh wait, I don't have Facebook, so I got to go figure out who else to ask. Which is, it's been a little bit of a struggle, but I'll figure it out. But I did learn about Facebook groups first on podcasts. I started listening to, I think the Private Practice Startup podcast was one of the ones that
that one's really good. Yes.
Super good. Super helpful. So when I was working my full-time job, I would, when I would go work out in the morning or after work, I'd put my headphones on, listen to podcasts, and I learned so much. And then they would say on their podcast, like, join our Facebook group. I was like, oh, okay, cool. They have a Facebook group. So then I joined there. And from there, learn from other people about other groups, and so you kind of just hear about different things from people in the groups. And I joined the group practice exchange group. That was really helpful for starting a group practice. The Thriving Therapist with Megan Gunnell, that was helpful too. And I'm actually not in a whole lot of groups because I know that it can be too overwhelming. So I'm probably just in like 5, I'd say.
Good for you. That's a good number.
Yeah.
I am in more than 5, and I should probably cut it down to less than 5.
Yeah. 5 was okay. And I wasn't overwhelmed with just the groups. I was overwhelmed just in personal stuff too, feeling a little bit of a pressure, like, oh, I got to post this for my family, or this event happened, they want to see pictures. And I was like, that is getting overwhelming. And if I go back, I'll probably just go back just for the groups and maybe make a new account where I don't have any friends, where I'm just in the groups. Yeah, we'll see.
That also sounds like a good idea because, yes, I also get overwhelmed, and especially because, I'll put it this way, there's just a lot of either vitriol, like where it's just like a lot of hatred, a lot of negativity in the posts, or it's just like, oh, here's me being sad. And there's a lot of that too. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it can be a little overwhelming after a long day of therapy.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Seeing that, I was like, man, there's so much hate, there's so much anger, there's so much that, and it's like we're already dealing with these things. So what groups are you a part of, Stephen? Do you know?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How many groups are you a part of on Facebook?
Oh, it is definitely more than 15.
Okay. That's a lot.
That's a lot, yes. And at this point, I like, putting my hat in the ring for referrals every so often. But at this point, there's really no point for me to be in any of these things.
Okay. Well, it's good that you know that.
Yes.
Go and remove.
Yeah, soon enough.
Yeah.
So, all right, social media. So you're in California, right?
Yes.
So what's your specialties?
So our group practice focuses primarily on teens and young adults, but we do see all ages because we have different therapists. We all have different niches, different things that we like to work with. So my thing specifically is teens and young adults with anxiety, trauma, stress, and I love doing family work. So
Cool.
I would say those are my thing.
Nice. I don't see anyone under 18.
Okay. That.
Because of laziness, I don't want to talk to their parents. I'm just like, you're adding too many people into this mix.
Yeah.
And second, I'm very existential and a little too logical. So when I have worked with kids in the past, back when I was like a baby counselor in not undergrad, between graduate school and whatever the internship was, I was like, no, I don't think I'm a good fit here. I'm a little too. It's hard to talk to an 8-year-old about, I don't know, suffering or trauma in the way I do. So kudos to you for being able to do that, and families.
Yes, I love families, and I hear that a lot. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's too much," and honestly, I think where I came from agency work, and it was too much working with families, and the kids. But that's because our caseloads were ridiculous, and so outside of that, now where I get to choose how many clients I see in a week. Now I'm like, oh, I do love working with families. I do love working with kids. And so, yeah, when you don't have a high caseload and you have time, then it doesn't feel like too much.
Sounds good. Absolutely. Yeah. That sounds perfect. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Being able to choose your clients, being able to choose how many times you want to see them, how many times you want to see anyone, and being able to do, the clinical caseload. But for people was there a transition point? Was there any transition difficulties going from, I don't know, like a caseload of 40, 50 a week to, I can just see 20?
Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, I had some coaching in my journey because I think they really helped me with that transition. My coach, Kate Crocco, I love her. She's amazing. She lives in New York. She's LCSW and a mindset coach. And she really helped me through that transition because I was working my full-time job, and then the evenings I would go my part-time job. And whenever I would say things about decisions I was making or, whatever it was, her and the mindset group would remind me that's like an agency mindset. That's, you don't have to do that anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. So she really helped me in that transition. And I was, like I said, I was working the full-time job, and then I was doing my private practice in the evening. So I knew that I was already burning out in my full-time job, and I didn't want that to happen in my business. So I intentionally did not take insurance because I didn't have the time or the energy to deal with that while I was working 2 jobs. And she was a big part of that too, because I was almost going to do that. And she's like, you don't need to do that. You can't handle that right now. It's like, oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Which brings me into my next angry rant about how insurance sucks and it's terrible. Okay. I hate it. Well, I won't go too long and vitriolic, but we were discussing before how the billing system that just we generally use can be just terrible. It's like, okay, I don't know what claims got paid. I don't know rephrase. A lot of times I don't know when some of the claims are getting paid.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'm fighting insurance companies. And I remember many years ago, by many, I mean like probably 18 months ago, I was on the phone with Humana TRICARE trying to track down the money they owed me. It was
Wow.
supposed to be a 30-minute phone call, ended up being 2 hours with me, ended up me crying.
Wow.
Just like right before my session that I had to do. And I was like, never again. So I still take insurance. I actually take a lot of insurances. I just hate being part of the system.
The system is so broken. It's so broken and takes advantage of therapists. I think makes it hard on purpose. My thought. So you talked about that phone call that turned into, you said 2 hours. I have a similar experience. So when I first started my private practice, I had done some work with a group practice for a very brief time. So the clients that I had with her, she took insurance, so they were insurance clients. So when I transitioned to my practice, they came with me. So I had to do something about those insurance clients. So I was on the phone with the insurance company to try to get like a single case agreement, something like that. And I was on the phone for hours, and they kept, oh, this person, you got to call this person, and put me on hold for hours. And I remember wanting to cry too. I don't think I did cry that day, but I remember wanting to cry out of frustration. And I said, they make this hard on purpose so that we can just give up and be like, fine,
Yep.
keep the money, right? Like I don't even want it anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So at that was an experience, and that really helped me make that final decision of no, I'm not going to take insurance if this is what it's going to look like.
Good. And it's so much easier with the EAPs I work with, or the charities I work with, where you send the invoice, they pay you, and I don't talk to them. I'm just like, here it is.
Nice.
And money shows up in my account. I know exactly when it is, and it's perfect.
Nice.
And it's like, why doesn't this work out that way?
Yeah, no, they don't want it to be too easy.
And insurance, like, and I don't want to make this too much of a history lesson, but 120 years ago last Thursday, when insurance was first coming up, like medical insurance, it made perfect sense. There's 100 people working at a mill. Johnny cuts his arm off at the grinder because there's no OSHA, and this is, we're working with steel stuff. And it's like, oh, let's get him a prosthetic. Let's get him some medical care. Let's cover the cost of that. And we're just pulling into the fund, and we can take out if there's a major injury. But now with the complexity of everything here, just the idea of like long-term care for mental health or alcoholism or anything like that, where it's like, oh, multiple payments over time, and it's now not a pool. Now it's a company running we pay the company to pay the providers to take care of you.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh, but now we're enemies.
Yeah, I know. No, we're no longer collaborating or working together as a team. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, ugh. Anyway, on to happier things.
Sure.
Like, cool, I am so in awe of you for not taking insurance. Keep it that way. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And I am envious. Definitely want to be that one day.
It works out really well. I think initially I was worried that we wouldn't get clients. I was worried everyone's going to want to use their insurance, and how is this going to work? But again, getting coaching, being surrounded by other people who were doing the same thing was really motivating and helpful. So yeah, we have clients. Our doors are open, and we're able to pay our bills. Able to pay my therapist, the staff, and so it's working out pretty well. And we're able to give quality service. Not to say that I wouldn't if we took insurance, but because we're not stressed out and burnt out, we're able to be more present, I think. So
yeah, that's something that clients actually don't understand. Maybe counselors don't understand. Like, no. The amount of work and like just energy, attention, time I've put into insurance definitely pulls away from clinical care.
Yeah, definitely. You got to take care of yourself. And
yeah, I also do concurrent note taking, which is great, but it's also like, here's just one more distraction during session that I have to do for insurance purposes.
I see.
All right, enough of my tales of woe on that. We're talking about happy things. All right. So, met in Costa Rica, great time, got a bunch of CUs from there. You mentioned before you might be going to another conference coming up.
Yes, I've already bought my tickets, or signed up for the Not So Typical Psychotherapist Summit in Maui 2024 with Ernesto.
Shout out to Ernesto. He's a really good resource for everyone.
He's super cool. I went into Maui last year, and it was great. It was a great time. He's very welcoming, very kind, very outgoing, and just made it really inviting for everybody. So I love it. And so I'm going to go back and hopefully take my whole team with me next year.
Oh, that'll be wonderful. Nice.
Yes, that's the goal. Ooh. So yeah, and there's so many other ones that are going on that are amazing, but I realized, okay, I can't go to every single one. So I need to step back a little bit, and yeah.
One day when I'm Tony Robbins rich, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to travel to all the conferences and just schmooze, because I just love schmoozing. It's like, yeah, let's hang out.
Exactly. One day. My husband, because he went with me for the last one, and he also went with me to Costa Rica, right? So he went with me it wasn't in Maui, it was in Kona. So he went with me to that last year, and then Costa Rica, where I met you. So he was like, babe, can't we just go on vacation? Does it have to be work related? Can we just go? I was like, oh yeah, I guess we could.
Well, no, we have to find a way to write off the expenses.
Right? That's the only thing. Yeah. Like, well, we won't be able to write off our normal vacation, but okay. But poor guy, he was just wanting a normal vacation.
Just say you're going for business anyway.
Yeah.
I am not a financial professional or tax professional, so take that with a grain of salt. That was a joke, IRS. Yes. But seriously, if you don't want to just lie to the IRS and take your money back, steal proofs of that.
Right. Well, he technically is my accountant, so I mean, guess could that
be nice.
Related, right? We could talk about business over there.
That would be awesome. Just every family event or action. It's like it's part of the business somehow.
Exactly. And we actually did talk about business recently. We went to Maui, right, last weekend to celebrate our 8th year anniversary. It's a pretty close flight from California. Pretty easy trip. So we went. And we did talk about business a bit. I was like, hey, can I afford to, give one of my therapists a raise? Can I? So we did talk about business, but didn't even think about writing that off.
Well, just keep the receipts. Go back through the credit card list. Like, what I spend on money on where?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
What else should the listeners know about you?
So I've been in this, I think back with what I was saying earlier about not feeling like you have to have it all together. I think I really want to kind of put that out there again. We got the keys to this office. This is a 4-office suite with a lobby, a kitchen, and a conference room.
Nice.
Yeah, and we got the keys in December, and it's still not fully furnished. So, it's taking a while. And sometimes I get a little hard on myself, like this should be done. Why do I still have bare walls? Why do I still have these things going on? But it is a learning process. It is a growing process, and it's really important to be kind to yourself. And so I'm constantly having to do that. Like, it's okay. In time, things will get done. I still have my full caseload, so I can't completely focus on the other parts of the business. So in time. So I think just being okay with it taking time and being a process. And my clients have been very understanding, so yeah. So I guess I'm a therapist who is not perfect, like we talked about, but growing and learning and loving it at the same time.
Perfect. Yeah. That's the thing. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing this like completely free form. I want it to be raw, real, authentic. Apparently authenticity is like the new big thing, which is always been the thing, but it's like, okay, now it's really up there.
Yes, never really honest.
Yeah, and just being, an imperfect counselor. So like, hey, we're still in the process of setting up all the things in the group practice. We got everything running. We just need some, I don't know, some posters or some pictures or some beanbag chairs or whatever it is that this room is calling for. It's okay, we don't have it yet. That's okay. But yeah, the allowing ourselves to be imperfect, allowing ourselves to be real. I am not professional. Rephrase. I am professional, just not as much as like the stereotype would be. I curse with my clients. I talk about some things that I get really real. I will open up about myself sometimes. They can ask me questions. If I ever get annoyed or if I ever don't want to tell them, I'll just say, hey, I don't want to do it. But most of the time, I'm pretty open. And being that just like authentic self is so important. But I've found, this is just my experience, this is anecdotal, a lot of counselors have trouble with that. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, why do you think that is? You know, because I'm thinking it's from school, right? Where they talk about being this blank slate and not having any, not being a human, right? In a way, it's like those questions. I remember in grad school, if they ask you a question about yourself, you turn it back to them and say, you know, well, why would you want to know that? You know, or how would that help you to know that about me, right? Versus be honest. And so I think a lot of that comes from the education system, you know, what we were taught.
And my program was, you're supposed to be the robot counselor, do your job, but not let anyone in. And, you know, I work with a lot of veterans, first responders, horribly traumatized. And I'm just like, oh, I get it. Our street is very much one way, but I gotta give a little flow back and like, no, I gotta share something about myself, because they're not gonna trust me compared to any other counselor, compared to, you know, anyone on the planet. It's like you need to get a little bit of rapport going, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You made me think of clients who have been like in law enforcement. For example, they ask me the most questions. Right? They definitely ask me the most questions. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's a little too personal, but it's true. I think they're looking for that, to build that trust.
Yeah, and it's absolutely wonderful, because usually around session 6 with some of my like really traumatized either first responders or veterans, they'll like they'll be like, I'll never cry in front of you, you're never gonna get anything. And then I finally get the damn to break around session 6, and it's like, oh, we have now reached some level of rapport where you can trust me. But that comes from basically testing out the entire, here's my heart, I'm putting your hands, be nice to me.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough, especially if you've been hyper repressed forever.
Yes, definitely. And don't you really like love that? I mean, I know that sounds maybe a little like you love to see your
no,
that's not it.
I love that.
Yeah, I love to see, you know, like breakthroughs happening. It's like, yes. You know, so inside I'm just really excited for them, but obviously on the outside I don't want to show that during the session. But I'm really happy for them.
No, I do show that during session. I'm like, oh, there, I'm sorry this is so much pain right now, but also awesome, now we can get some real work done. And I'll usually tell them at the first session too, like, listen, the surgeon likes to cut people. He's actually so good at it, he gets a lot of money for it. I'm kind of the same way. I don't want to hurt you unnecessarily, but I do want to hurt you necessarily for a good clinical reason.
Wow, I love that way to put that. I've never heard it that way. That's really good.
I think I'm the only person who has ever thought of it that way. So
yeah, that sounds a little violent or gruesome, but
I come from a medical family, so it's like I don't like the sight of blood. I don't like injuries, but I'm probably more able to stomach it than the average person, just from my background. It's like, yes, I didn't grow up in hospitals, but it was kind of maybe a third home.
Okay. Well, it makes perfect sense though, so that works. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Yeah, so I try to keep it together until like the end. I'm like, I'm so proud of you right now. Like, I'm so grateful for this. You know, I think this needed to happen. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it sucks, you know, to get to this place. But now we can really, really, like you said, we can really do the work now. We can really move forward. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's just so much emotional content that's just held back by the dam. And it's like, I've worked with so many clients who are afraid of letting a drop through.
Yeah.
They're afraid the flood will come through.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, it might.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to turn it off at times, but yeah, it can be a lot. So go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I'm curious, because I noticed this about myself the other day. I was like, how do you, a client who, was finally getting to that point, and all I could think of saying was just let it out. Just let it out. Just let it go. And part of me wasn't sure to say anything at all. I was kind of second guessing myself. Like, should I just let them be and give them that space, or do I encourage them? And so I'm just curious really quick, what would you do?
I just break it down that they have two options, and I tell them I like flooding. I like you just letting the vulnerability in and all the walls down, and you just crying for an hour here. But I do understand that can be so overwhelming, it kind of breaks your heart, and might not be the most clinically appropriate. And then I say, okay, let's learn some basic emotional skills. That's identifying emotions, that's emotional management, breathing, journaling, progressive muscle relaxation, body scanning, all the mindfulness techniques, which a lot of people have never heard of, or if they've heard of them, like, oh yeah, I tried, meditation 10 years ago and it didn't work, so I never tried it again. It's like, oh, well, let's put more tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
But I leave it up to them, because I have definitely encouraged someone to let the flood in, which led to basically re-traumatizing them in a way they weren't prepared for.
Yeah.
So now I first explain everything, go into like a 5-minute channel, like, oh, do you want to flood it? Do we want to just like let sun in and turn the spigots off? And let them decide.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. That's
yeah.
Very helpful. It's like, I wonder what other people, I was thinking, I wonder what other therapists do in this situation, because it's battling with them myself.
Because I want everyone to be crying on my couch.
Yeah.
That's not how I want to say it. I want them to be able to be free enough to cry on my couch and let the catharsis go through, and they can get the healing, so they can get to like, oh, Steve, I'm fine now. I'm here to fire you. Like, perfect.
Yeah.
But I do understand that, and even with my own therapist, who most of the therapists in my life have been amazing. And it still took me a while to be like really open up about my own emotions and trauma. And it's like, Steve, do you remember that time 10 years ago when you had so much trouble? And the answer is no, because I don't remember what was going on last week, let alone who I was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But I try, and it's like, yeah, okay, slow down.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Like, as therapists, when we go to therapy, you would think that it'd be so easy because we know what it looks like, but it's actually really hard.
That's the doctors are the worst patients idea. It's like, yeah, it's this is, well, I'll qualify this. This has been helpful, getting my master's degree, becoming licensed, working with everyone, doing all the groups. It has been very helpful. But even sometimes I'm sharp enough to cut myself. I know enough that maybe I'm utilizing it inappropriately for me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you realize that.
Yeah. I should pay my therapist more.
Here's a bonus.
Yeah.
I know how hard I'm making this for you.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I started, so right before COVID, so I started my practice when COVID hit. So it was in 2020. I had already had plans of starting a practice, but I was so busy. So, I didn't really have time. But when COVID hit, I all of a sudden had time. I had plenty of time, right? Because we're all at home. And, but before COVID, I was dealing with a lot of social anxiety. And I would find myself having extreme stomach aches and getting really sick and needing to run out of places when I felt anxious, so it typically would be triggered by being in small spaces with a lot of people at once. I'm so proud of myself because in Costa Rica, I was able to stay in those rooms. But no one can tell, but I was, it was a little bit of a battle, to be there. And I had to kind of just focus on the speaker, focus on what you're, typing. But right before COVID hit, I was struggling a lot with that social anxiety, and I was going to a lot of meetings and trainings. And so then I said, I need to go to therapy. So I started with therapy right before COVID hit. And then I was like, well, I kind of fired my therapist because I said, well, I'm not going to be in any social environments anytime soon. so I don't think I need you right now. So, she was nice. She was really great. I had a few sessions with her, and then, and I didn't need her for a long time because I was home. So it worked out really well. But, and so then I had to heal and do my own thing, my own process. And, now I'm a lot better, and I'm always proud of myself when I'm able to go to trainings or workshops and not run out the room in the middle of it. It's like a victory. So
good.
Yeah,
that is wonderful. Facing that fear and healing. Good.
Yeah.
I was very socially anxious, very shy, very repressed as a young man, and I am now making up for lost time as much as possible. So first hearing you say that, I would have no idea.
Right. And you saying that too, I was like, no, you were so talkative at the retreat. I would not have thought that about you.
Yeah, you should have met me 10 years ago. I was a mess. You wouldn't have met me, I would have run away in fear.
That's so funny.
Like, beautiful woman. Oh my God, run.
Hey, never mind. Guess that it's not interested in having conversation. That's funny.
I also had some very good therapists who were, they didn't do the flooding. They didn't make me do the entire, run up to people and say hi, but they did gently help me understand what was going on.
Nice.
But yeah, social anxiety is hard to face.
It is. And that's how you deal with it, is by facing it. There's just no other way.
And I've tried to run social anxiety groups 4 times, and no one shows up.
Of course. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I thought about that too. I was like, is anybody going to come? I don't think so.
Well, what sucks is, it wasn't suck. What's good thing is, at University of Central Florida, there was a social anxiety group that I joined, which was very helpful. I met some very cool people, made some friends. I was like, oh, this is actually how you overcome this.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, this is great. I want to do this. And then I was like, okay, maybe this setting is different. This is a school with, I think it's the 2nd largest school in the country, so it's like 60,000 people.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, you got 8 out of them.
Yeah.
The population metrics that you're working with, Steve, aren't working.
I've thought of doing, so maybe not so much like a group, but like a social, I guess an experiential type of group, where it's like, hey, if you have social anxiety, this is where we're actually going to come and hang out. So I've envisioned going to a place where we can have refreshments and drinks, and people would know that everyone there has social anxiety, right? So they'd be guided by myself or, whoever can help me with it, in socializing and in confronting those fears. So I thought more experiential and more hands-on versus just coming to a group and sitting, around a table. I thought that would be kind of cool. So it's an idea.
That'd be great. I love that idea. And yeah, maybe some non-clinical. That would definitely be an option, especially if I need to remember that some people really hate going to the doctor. It's like, okay, that applies to you too, Steve.
Yeah.
Just if you have an office, oh yeah, this can be a scary location. But going to Starbucks or Panera or one of the cafes or somewhere where it's like, oh, this is what I normally do. Now I'm just doing something, as you said, a little formalized, a little experiential. Might be less scary.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Great idea. Definitely let me know when you do that, because I don't know anyone in California, but I would fly people out. Go do this thing. Go fix your social anxiety.
Well, don't send them to my first one, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be a learning experience for sure.
That's okay. It can be imperfect.
Yeah, maybe my 10th one, you can fly people over. Make it worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you let me know when it's good.
I will definitely let you know, because I feel like that's more of aligned with who I am as a person, so I'm an extrovert, which is really interesting that I developed this social anxiety. I developed it in my in the last few years. I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have that in college. It wasn't until, I think it was a mixture of things. I was very stressed at my agency job. So I had a lot of like gut health issues, you know, and I think everything just together, you know, accumulated and created the social anxiety. And but anyway, so I love people. I love connecting with people, and that's more my style, you know. So for therapy and thinking about my practice, I want to do fun things. I want people to go do fun things together, and I want to facilitate that, you know. So I think it's more aligned with who I am versus just the, I mean, I enjoy the one-on-ones as well, but I see it so much that my clients, they need connection. And I'm like, where? And the question is always, where do we meet people? Where do we get that? Where do we get that from? And I'm like, that's a good question. Where do you meet people? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and being a traveling therapist, it's like, it can get lonely. So the idea is, A, do this. Digital connection can be good. But also, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find connection. It's hard to find belonging, whether you're, you know, traveling therapist or not, and just person who's in a hometown, maybe even big, maybe in a metropolis. Maybe you're in Miami, maybe you're in New York, LA, but you're like alone in a crowd.
Yeah,
that level of disconnection is real. And yeah, having that experience, that option to be extrovert and do this stuff, that would be amazing. So kudos to you. Once you do anything, I want to hear about it.
Definitely. I will let you know.
Thank you.
I'm forgetting, Stephen. Are you on Instagram?
I am, but I never use it.
Okay. That's probably why I haven't seen you on there.
I think we might be friends on Instagram. I'll check after this.
Okay.
But, yeah, I rarely post, and I like when I do, I kind of hate it. Like I don't know which ones are which one's the story, which one's the real, and it's like I am now the old senior citizen.
Oh man!
Like, what's email? And I'm like, I hate this that I am that now, but I'm also just don't want to learn either. So
yeah, no, I understand. There's times when I kind of want to just do everything the old-fashioned way and get rid of all of the, you know, the tech stuff. But then I'm like, no, then I'm going to get older faster. So I better stay on it and get it together. Yeah.
Well, I've been on the TikTok recently, and what an addiction that is. And I'm just like, oh, I probably just need to accept that I'm old and just get off this thing. Because, yeah, as much as there's just so much instantaneous content, it's actually terrifying.
I agree. I feel like I hate TikTok. You know, I say that's a strong word, but
I'm addicted to it, and I hate TikTok.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I hate TikTok. And the things that I see, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like kids are seeing this, teens are seeing this, like, you know, it's scary, and it makes me really upset, the things that people are exposed to nowadays, so easily. Right. So I tried to, you know, one of my younger friends was suggesting that I create a TikTok for my business. And he was like, Eunice, everyone's on TikTok. You know, you like to work with young adults and teens. Like, you should be on TikTok. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll try it. So I did create a TikTok for my business. I think I have like 3 posts on there. It's been like a couple years that I've had it. So I'm just like, I cannot get into it. Just a lot of work. So
yeah, it is. And I don't know how to edit videos, which is why I'm doing this free form.
Yeah. Oh, that's why. There we go.
That's one of the reasons why.
Yeah. No, I'm not really good at it either, so I don't blame you.
All right, listeners, as two counselors say, stay the hell off of TikTok.
Yes.
That's what'll rot your brain.
Yes. 100%.
All right. Well, let's check in. Want to talk about anything else, or this is a pretty good end point for the podcast?
Yeah, I don't know what I felt like we covered a lot.
We've covered a lot, but so how about we pause here then? And if we want to say more, we can always do this again.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Stephen, for having me. This is fun.
Thank you, Eunice. It's been Great seeing you again. I know it's been 2 months since the event, and it's great to keep connection with everyone I met. And I am so glad to hear you're doing well. And you're going to Maui, and the business is great, and you're kicking butt. So, thank you very much for taking the time to do this with me.
Yes, of course, we'll do it again.
And if clients or any listeners want to work with you, how do they find you?
Yes, so if you are in California, you can find me at Better Together Mental Health Services. Well, actually on Instagram, Better Together MHS, and on Facebook again, if I reactivate it, Better Together MHS. Our website is www.bettertogethermhs.com. So that's the best way to find me.
Perfect. I'll put that in the show notes and the subject line for the video. So,
Okay, awesome.
All right. Thank you again, and we'll end here.
All right. Thank you,
listeners. All right. How do I turn off recording?